he refers back to a lot of different people. Sometimes he shows where their thoughts maybe aren't the best, but he shares them. But anyhow, here's one from Keil, K-E-I-L, and Delitzsch's Old Testament commentary, and published by William B. Eerdmans and Company, volume 4, page 84. In this, and this is a quote from that book, Keil and Delitzsch, Job's trust in God is not destroyed, but it is overcast with thick clouds of melancholy and doubt. And that's where sometimes in life's journey we may find ourselves. Not doubting God, and not giving up on God, but our thoughts in the grief of the situation. We don't know where we are and why God has allowed us to be here. But that's what Keil and Delitzsch said. God's trust is not, Job's trust in God isn't destroyed. It's overcast with doubt and confusion, of melancholy and doubt. He wasn't giving up on God. Another one is Jeremiah had the same kind of doubt when he was oppressed by those that God had sent him to warn that they better get back to God, or God was going to deal with them. They didn't take kindly to that. And Job was down and out at that time. And that you can read about that in Jeremiah 20, verses 14 to 18. And Jesus on the cross, when he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me?" in Matthew 27 and 46. He had the whole sins. Here, a perfect man, it's hard for us to understand. But here in his last few moments of life, he's crying out. He has the sins of the whole world on his back. Why have you left me, God? Because God can't stand in the face of sin. Here, Jesus, at this time, Emmanuel, who came from earth, from heaven to earth, to walk as a man, sinless, although tempted many times, here he was, crying out to God, why have you left me? And at this point, there was no immediate answer for Jesus as why God left him. But it came later, a few days later, when he was left out of the tomb, and not to let the Lord out, but to let the witnesses of his resurrection see the empty tomb. That's where Jesus' relief came. It didn't come immediately when he was on the cross, but a few days later. Job came later on in the mighty whirlwind when God spoke to him. And he saw, right at this point, chapter 3, he can't see it. He's in confusion. But later on, when God convicts his foolish comforters, his three friends, this is when Job finds the relief and is restored back to twice what he had before. And he didn't understand it at that point in time. So let's go back to chapter 3. Is there any questions or anything? Okay. Seems like I did a lot of reading and talking, which I don't like to do, but I thought to get some thoughts out there, I needed to do it. We'll go down to about the 10th verse. I've got it divided down. And any time, just raise your hand. and we can stop and see what we've got from these few verses. Beginning with verse 1. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, now this is immediately after he had met with his three friends who didn't know what to do. And this is beginning a new episode in the life of Job. After this, Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. And Job spoke and said, may the day perish on which I was born, and the night in which it was said, a male child is conceived. May that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor the light shine upon it. May darkness and the shadow of death claim it. May a cloud settle on it. May the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, may darkness seize it. May it not rejoice among the days of this year. May it not come into the number of the months. Oh, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout come into it. May those curse it who curse the day, those who are ready to arouse, Leviathan, the devil that God defeats in the last days. May the stars of its morning be dark. May it look for light, but have none, and not see the dawning of the day, because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide sorrow from my eyes. Does anybody have any thoughts after that was? Okay. Yeah.
One little thought.
Okay, that's.
I don't think Job was the only person in the world who ever thought in his lifetime, although this was terrible, terrible, terrible. None of us that I know of have lost as much as Job did.
Right.
But there are times when you think, what am I good for? But that's not where we're supposed to think.
Right.
Job still, through all of this, even though he said that, his faith was in God.
Right. He was, one of the commentators said, he was in a terrible, excruciating torment. He was in a place, he was like his three friends. I'm in a place I don't deserve. I've done everything I could. And I think another thing I thought about Job was he was rich. He was a wealthy farmer, a wealthy businessman, and yet he prayed for himself, offered prayers for himself, for his family, in case any of them had sinned. He knew he wasn't perfect, and he praised God for what God had given him. But then why did God allow, with restraint, the devil to put him under so much affliction?
And it makes sense that if he hadn't been born, none of this would have happened. Now, that's human sense.
Right.
That's not God's wisdom.
Right.
That's
Yeah. And as we read this, and maybe I'm not reading with the proper inflections that a poem would bring. It's kind of in Hebrew poetry, and it repeats itself. It's different things, but it's bringing out the same thought. Why was this day even allowed? Why was I allowed to be born? And later on it says, why? Well, in verse 10, in verse 9, why was I allowed to see the dawn of day? Why? Because the doors of my mother's womb weren't closed. I was allowed to be born. why? Otherwise, I could have been oblivious to any of this. I mean, I could have not known any of this. He's not tearing God down, but he's just in such, he's not renouncing his faith in God, but he's still wondering. He's crying out. Somebody said it's the most significant thing of human agony and despair. He says, the New Layman's Bible, page 563, says that Job is giving one of the most poignant or touching or moving, heartbreaking sense of emotions. He's talking out aloud, but to himself, he's just in pure agony, and he doesn't. He still knows that he needs to be trusting God, but in all this despair, he's saying, "Why am I here? If I was never born, I wouldn't be having all these problems." So, is there any other thoughts on this? Okay. Starting in verse 11. Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why didn't I die? I mean, it's kind of the same thought. Why was I allowed to be here? Verse 12, why did the knees receive me, or why the breast that I should nurse? Why was I allowed to live and not die at birth and be nursed by my mother? For now I would have lain still and been quiet. I would have been asleep. Then I would have been at rest. With kings and counselors of the earth, who built ruins for themselves, or with the princes who had gold, who filled their houses with silver. I would have never known any of this. I could have been at rest with even the richest and the most, the richest and the most powerful people in the world. I could have been at rest with them if I'd have never been born. I wouldn't have known any of the problems that goes on.
Dick,
Yeah.
like Patty said, there's probably a lot of examples in the Bible we can go to. The one I was thinking about was Moses back in Numbers, chapter 11. After he was leading these people and they would come out of Egypt and all they did was complain. Nothing was ever.
Right.
Why can't we go back to where we had all the fish and we had all the stuff we could eat? The whole time they were down there, they were complaining that they
Yeah.
wanted out of there. So God gave them that and got them out. But Moses, in Numbers 11:50 says, "If you treat me like this, please kill me here and now. If I have found favor in your sight, and do not let me see my wretchedness." So I don't know how despondent you have to get to actually pray to God that he would take your life,
Right.
And I don't know if that's tempting God. I'm not sure where that comes into effect too, but so if he would have taken Job's life, what would have been the result of that? He'd have been his heavenly reward.
Right.
If he lived like it says he did, he was upright before God, and everything. If God had taken his life, he'd have been better off anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
that's our goal, to go to heaven.
Right.
But I don't know, I haven't been there yet, and I'm afraid that my life would be taken.
Right.
I'd never get there. But I
Right.
mean,
Well, I read somewhere that it wasn't really, in my studies, it really wasn't him thinking about taking his own life, or,
No,
but it,
he wanted to die.
right, oh yeah, he wanted free from all the pain and the suffering, and
But aren't we taught that that through our hardships and our burdens, it makes us stronger? When
Yeah.
things happen to you, don't you come back,
stronger.
you're a better person?
Yeah, that's what my mother told me. Every struggle you go through is going to make you stronger. Yeah, so, yeah, that is true, and
And, you look at Jesus, he didn't want to die either. But he
Right.
did,
right. And in the end, you think of Job and all this suffering and grief that he was going through, that his all those people that were friends, including those that didn't know what to do, were aware of what was going on, and he was an example to them. So later on, after this is all over with, his life goes back, just like Moses, Jeremiah, and the other ones who suffered. Where is it that said in the New Testament, it says the scriptures are, this thought just came to mind, like the prophets who have gone before us. I mean, they suffered grief and pain. Does anybody know where that scripture is? But anyhow, they served as an example for future generations. And that was the end goal, that they would be an example. Yes.
The verse there talks about, in verse 14, the kings and counselors of the earth who built ruins for themselves. We got to think about that a minute.
Okay.
No king ever set out and said, you know what, I'm going to build some ruins here.
Right.
A whole bunch of them have them sitting around today.
Yeah.
So he's talking about the way things work out. You know, that king was great, he built something magnificent, and now it's ruined. And that's what he isn't asking to die now, he's asking, why didn't I die
Right.
at birth?
Right. Why did?
And
Why?
I would be with those guys who thought they were really doing something, and now it's all in ruins. It's like Solomon said, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That's where he starts out in his dissertation.
Right.
But it's curious too, you know, that he sat there on the ground with those friends, 7 days, and I don't think they even made eye contact. Nobody knew what to say, what to do, and what to, and
Yeah.
then Job comes up with this.
Yeah.
Says, you know, why am I here?
Right. I'm left alone. Nobody can help me. And
Do you really think he was looking for an answer from these guys?
I think it's like rhetoric. I think
Yes.
they're all
He's-
going to think and ponder this, and they do for the next 40 chapters.
Yeah.
yeah, it is like Hebrew poetry, and it repeats itself. And he's coming out with the same in thought. I mean, lamenting that he was ever born to have to been face all this. Otherwise, if I hadn't been born, I would just be at rest and never have known anything.
Apparently, he thought about some of those ruins that he's seen, and this isn't too far into the scheme of things, but there must be some things around that have decayed after people died and thought they wanted them real bad.
Yeah.
It's like going by a junkyard, you know. Everybody wanted those vehicles and made the payments, and that was their pride and joy. Now
Yeah. Yeah, so,
The other thing too is, God knows what's gonna happen, you know, I mean, so, in the end, Job is blessed twice what he had before.
right, yeah,
So, you know, I don't know, things happen, I guess, I don't know, it must be human nature, maybe, I don't know the answer to it, but.
Well, Job has no idea that that's coming up when he says this.
no,
No idea that he's gonna get twice as much as he did have.
Right, I
No.
understand that, but if we could just say somehow, well, you know, God's got a hand in this thing, so I'm not gonna worry about it, but we can't get there. You know, we can't seem
Right.
to, when something happens, and like we said before, our first thought is to blame God and run away
Right.
from him instead of
Right.
clinging to him, you know? I
Well,
mean, that seems to be our mindset, and if somehow we could get to, when things happen, if we could, you know,
well,
be like Jesus, say, if this is the cup I have to bear, then let it be, you know?
And then-
You know, so,
then there's like, it comes along with this thought, and where Job is, in Romans 8:18, where it says, "The sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed to us," later on. Job's kind of like there. He doesn't know the end. Later on in the book of Job, when God says to him, "Hey, look at me. I'm the creator. Why are you questioning me?" But in Romans 8:18, it says, "The sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory that shall be revealed to us." I know this is talking more about physical problems, but this is talking about the dealings, what we have to deal with in life, the opponents that we have to deal with in life. They're not worthy to be compared to the glory that would be revealed to us later on. And Job had no idea what he was going to receive later on after his suffering.
Dick, I remember back during COVID, that, I tried to tell my girls that, you know, if something happens, that I'm ready for it.
Mhm.
Because, you know, of where my final destination is.
Mhm.
But I think as human beings, I don't think we're ever quite there. I remember my grandpa Smith, when
Yeah.
he was sick with cancer, and he was over at a birthday party at our house, and, at mom and dad's house, and, he had to go in and lay down on the couch. And he's one guy that, you know, in my mind, okay, final destination, I know where he's going.
Right.
And, but he laid there and he cried and he said, "Corey, I'm not ready to die."
Yeah.
And this relates directly to Job. I mean, he's suffering and he knows, you know, he knows, but he's not ready. And so I think that's why we have to read what he's went through and what he's thinking, because I think we'll all, maybe I'm wrong, but not all, of course, but I think a lot of us are gonna think the same thing someday. You know?
Yeah.
And we see people get sick all the time, and why is it happening to them? Why is it happening to me? As humans, I just don't think we can quite grasp where we're finally going.
Right. And it doesn't always have to deal with sickness, and we don't know what, and that's a big part of it. But there's all things like just loss of wealth, loss of property, which, fires, floods, death. Flood of '96 still chokes me up, you know, having to deal with it, you know. But, yeah. continue on here and try to finish up here. Ugh. The small and great are there, and the servant is free from his master. That means, if you're removed from life, both those who are rich and those who are small or those who are great, they're all there. And the servant or the worker is free from his master. You don't have to listen to the master. You're free. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, who long for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly and are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to the man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my sighing comes before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. That last verse, he can't see any rest. He thinks in the state he's in, the trouble is still coming. And he doesn't know what God has in store for him yet. But why is light given to man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? And compare that to chapter 1, verse 9. So Satan, let's see. Where Satan says that God, haven't you made a hedge around Job? Is there any, I couldn't completely come up with the comments on that. Is there any thoughts as to Job thinking that God has hedged him in?
I don't think hedged him in is what he means. I think he's kept him safe from everything that could possibly harm him. And Satan says, well, you kept him safe. Just
Yeah.
let me get a hold of him.
Yeah.
We'll see what kind of a guy you are.
Well, that's, Satan's still having his field day. So, that's very possible. I mean, I looked at that and that's why I welcome these comments. It's helping. I mean, I've read through these things, and still different thoughts come to my mind. And sometimes they come and then they go, but that's why going through this time after time helps to bring to light. And are there any other comments?
I'm just so thankful that we know the end of this story. As we
Yeah,
read through.
and I know I've gone through it before, and most all of you have read it, and I hate to be revealing the end of the story, or some has called it a play.
Well, no, I mean, it's good because these words right here sink in, and they sink in very hard. But, I mean, again, thankful that we know the end of the story.
Oh yeah, we ended the.
Like Lorraine said, she's read it multiple times, and how it means something different now. I mean, I can't imagine how she feels as she reads it, or anyone else that this relates in specific ways. It relates to each one of us differently. But the greatest thing is we know what the end of the story is.
Right, and that God knows the end of the story if we're faithful to Him. That's the main import to there. And Well, thank you for the